Do you find you can't get enough spooky goodness? Then by Jove, you need to check out the Generally Spooky Patreon. For the princely sum of £4 a month, you can enjoy our main episodes a whole day earlier than the general public. If that doesn't float your boat, you can become an £8 a month spooky trooper. You'll get the main episodes early and access to 12 extra Patreon exclusive episodes, with more to come. The episode that really tickles my pickle is about Private Wojtek, a brown bear that served in World War II. As a top draw £12 a month Spookmaster General, you'll be on Cloud 9 with access to our Wee Blether series. In it, my darling wife and I debrief episodes, play games, and chitter-chatter about our goings-on. You'll also become a member of the Spooky Book Club, where Eilidh is currently reading us Peter Pan, having just finished Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Simply marvellous. Did I mention you also get 10% off our quality merchandise if you join? You bet your bacon you do. So come join us. Get your peepers over to patreon.com/generally spooky and support your favourite rapscallions. Tally-ho!
Hey, I'm Shan.
And I'm Troy.
And we are going on a little murder road trip,
where every Sunday we take you to a new state alphabetically to tell you the story of murder, spooks, and everything in between.
Yes, join us every Sunday for bad jokes, murder, and ghosts. It doesn't get much better than that.
So grab your snackies, get on in, and we're going to go on a murder road trip.
Welcome to the Generally Spooky Podcast.
Hello, everybody.
Where I cut Kieran off before he can get too upset.
That did just happen. Oh, the things you have to edit out.
You'll never know.
We're back again for another deep dive into Scottish history and the spooky goings-on.
That's what we do. That's what we love. That's what you're here for. So we're going to do it.
Now with theme tunes, apparently. Theme songs. Well, we have a theme song.
I mean, it took me like 3 days to put that together.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
No further questions, please.
I didn't ask.
Good.
I'm not taking criticism at this time. So don't worry about it.
Eilidh has been manically scripting for us today.
Oh, you guys.
To bring us this week's episode.
You guys. Can we just talk for real for a minute? I tried at this episode 4 times before I got this version.
Yeah.
4 times with different topics.
We were end of play on Monday. And Eilidh came to me saying I have to start again because I got nothing. And I was just sat there being like, oh no.
It wasn't working. I have a cracker of an extra episode that we'll put up on Patreon at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't working for a main episode. And then I had to scrap all of my research for that. 3 more attempts at different topics that just weren't working. And then found this one. Thank God. But it's been a solid 24 hours of work, I think.
Yep, Eilidh has been furiously typing.
Luckily, I am a fast typer.
Well, thank goodness.
And a somewhat fast thinker.
I am not.
That's why I write.
You do the writing, I do the sitting here. That's the deal.
That's how you make the big bucks.
Provide them jokes.
Those funny jokes.
Yep, that's me. That's why I'm here.
If it isn't obvious, this is the first time we've been recording late at night for a wee while. We have a different energy in nighttime.
We just do. It's a little bit sillier. So, frankly, I think we should roll some music before we get any worse.
Well, I mean, I've been rushing to this point. I feel like I have to just
keep the hype train going.
I have to deliver this as quick as possible. Even though I've been rushing to this point to do exactly this, I still feel like I have to be rushing.
Oh, roll the music. So what do we have today?
This week, I think people are going to be a bit split.
Oh.
On how they feel.
Okay.
I think you are going to be both enraged and delighted at what we're talking about.
Those don't go hand in hand very often.
No.
That I'm scared. You guys help.
It's a really interesting story. I'm excited to bring it to you, and I really want to know what you think.
Well, that's good. I will endeavour to tell you.
I mean, you always do. I never have to ask.
No.
This week, we're talking about Ballechin House.
Ballechin House.
Now, I might be saying that wrong. A lot of people got in touch to kindly let me know that I was saying Lochmaben wrong. I'm very sorry. I didn't know.
What did we say? Lochmaben?
Yeah, for the whole episode.
And it was at the very end you went, I wonder if it's Maben. It might even have been just after we stopped recording.
Oh yeah, it was. I think I remember having the conversation saying, it's probably not that, and we've just recorded the whole thing.
Well, that happened apparently.
But we can't go back and change it.
It's too late now.
So I do apologise. I know it now, but the episode exists now.
So we're at, where are we now?
Ballechin House.
Which is not Ballechin House.
No, Ballechin House is on the banks of Loch Ness.
Yes.
Which we've talked about before. This is Ballechin House.
I can see why you couldn't pronounce it.
Ballechin.
Ballechin.
I looked it up and I was informed it was Ballechin.
What's Ballechin with you, huh?
Or is it Ballechin? How did they say it on the pronunciation thing I looked at? I can't remember now. Ballechin.
I think it was Ballechin.
Oh, we're going to have to go back. Oh.
There's no time to go back.
Ballechin. Oh, fuck.
So we are talking about Ballechin House.
Like, I want to play you
Final
guys.
answer.
I'm going to play you guys how I've been informed, because this is all I have. I haven't visited the house. Ballechin. You're looking at me like I'm crazy. I don't see you getting any results. So, yeah, but Ballechin. That's how I said it the whole time. Shut up. This week, we're talking about Ballechin House.
Interesting, Eilidh. You got that first try.
Up first time, every time.
So I'm getting rage and delight.
I think so. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, I think we should just dive in before we get derailed any further.
Now that we know how to say it, maybe.
Or is it Mabby?
Mabby? Babby? Baby? Maybe.
Too far.
So, we don't really get more traditional haunted house than this episode. But the consensus that I've read is some people are quite torn about how they feel about Ballechin House.
In the way that me and you are torn about ghosts generally? Or
Yeah, kind of. Or people don't really know what they think. They don't really know what to make of it all. There's a lot of debate.
yeah, okay. Because, our dynamic is Eilidh believes in ghosts and I'm right, so.
Boy, now's not the time. We don't have time for this. In this episode, we have lots of accusations of fraud. We have lots of emerging science.
Oh.
We have betrayal.
Interesting.
And we may even veer round to Helen Duncan at some point.
Not Helen Duncan.
Helen Duncan.
Oh, it's my least favourite episode because she's my least favourite person.
Who knows? Maybe we're going to get there.
I hope you know.
No script. I'm just telling a story this week. Turns out I didn't get it done. Ran out of time. We have nothing.
Yeah, just reflection in your glasses of an empty document.
Or just like a picture of Odin for moral support, just to get me through. Our story takes place in Perthshire, near Ballinluig.
Okay.
You know this place, Kieran, because it's a great place to stop on the A9 if you fancy a burger or a hot roll.
Yep, it's a nice greasy spoon on the main road down to the central belt.
Yep, if you stop at Ballinluig Junction, there's a very nice cafe. You'll get a really nice lunch.
Yep, truck stop.
Yep, it's great. Me, Dad really loves Ballinluig. Whenever I was going down the road with him, we always had to stop or something. It's always really nice. You'll need to try and put that out of your mind, though, because Ballechin House has a very different vibe to a tasty breakfast.
Okay.
It's very different vibe. Ballechin House was near Ballinluig, so that's between Pitlochry and Dunkeld, if you're not familiar with the area. Beautiful part of the country. Absolutely stunning. It's one of my favourite areas. Lots of forest. The scenery's really pretty.
Yeah, it's really nice down there.
We stayed in Dunkeld before and it's lovely. And Pitlochry has a lot of Victorian style buildings. Really, really nice.
Beautiful.
So Ballinluig is kind of the perfect place for a Georgian style mansion.
Well, I was wondering what kind of house we're dealing with here. Like, are we talking castle or are we talking big house?
Well, Ballechin House, Ballechin House, as we're going to be talking about it, was a Georgian manor house.
Okay.
So I'm showing Kieran some pictures currently. You've probably seen Georgian style architecture before, even if you don't know if that's what it's called.
Picture where Jane Eyre would stay.
Yeah, or like Pride and Prejudice, Regency style homes, that kind of thing. Although I think it's technically after the no, I think it was the Regency era. So yeah, very Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen, big square houses in the country with big gardens.
Yep.
That's kind of where we're at.
And big ghosts.
Well, we'll just have to see, won't we? The Stuarts of Ballechin owned the land around Ballechin House since the mid-1400s.
Okay.
From what I saw. And that's Stuart, like my maiden name.
Oh, yes.
Sir John Stuart of Styx was the furthest back that I took their family tree, in part because his dad was King James II.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So I didn't feel the need to take it all the way back because we've talked about all of that before.
Yes, very recently as well.
Yeah, and when you get into the royal line, if you want to look into it, it's all very readily available.
Yes.
John was an illegitimate son of King James II, and we don't know who his mother was.
What a bastard. Yeah.
She's just referenced in all the documents as a mistress of King James, which seems a shame because John Stuart of Styx was deemed important enough to have a title and some land, but his mother wasn't important enough to
have a name.
Yeah, to remember by name.
Brutal.
Yeah. James II was the king who was killed by a cannonball at Roxburgh Castle.
Yes.
Just to keep you straight. And all this meant that King James III was John's half-brother.
Okay, I'm with you.
So, a prestigious but dangerous position to be in. So, from what I saw, John was given land and a title, but he was still quite lowly, so to be no threat.
Yes. He couldn't contest anytime soon.
No, it didn't seem that way. He was set up and made sure that he lived well, but he was never going to be king.
Yeah. Lived in a manner befitting of his papa.
In a manner.
Ah.
Sir John was alive between 1455 and 1523.
So he was a doctor.
It begins. How long? 14 minutes. So yeah, that's how I'm fairly certain that they at least had the land around Ballechin in the mid-1400s, because that's when he existed. During John's era, there was a large home on the land that he lived in, but it wasn't the Ballechin House that we would know.
Okay.
It was different. I want to say that it would have been a tower house, but I haven't seen it confirmed anywhere. So I don't know. I think there was a wall in Ballechin House that had an old foundation stone or an engraved stone from the older building.
Cool.
So the new house was built on top of the old house.
Yep.
But I can't see what the old one looked like. But there was an older one there. Ballechin House, as we know it, was built in 1806.
Okay.
So it's quite late.
Yeah.
Which is why it's in the style that it's in.
Yeah, that makes sense why it's a house and not a castle.
Yeah, it's a big manor house, not a fortification.
Yes.
The line of lords at Ballechin continued over the years. It stayed in the same family, sometimes not passing directly from father to son, but it stayed largely within the family.
Yep.
Sometimes passing to cousins or brothers. Apparently, James Stuart, the fourth of Ballechin, was killed by Cromwell's forces during the Civil War because they mistook him for the Earl of Atholl.
Oh, no. I was about to say that's a very prestigious way to die, to Cromwell.
Not if it was by accident.
Yeah, that's less so. That's just a bummer.
I'm pretty sure the Earl of Athol was also a Stuart. But I could be wrong on that one.
They're all Stuarts.
I'm always interested, so I'll tell you that the Stuarts of Ballechin seem to always be on the side of the Jacobites.
Okay.
During the multiple risings, which makes sense because they were Stuarts.
Yep.
From the line of Jameses.
Yes.
So they would be on the side of the Jameses. In 1689, Patrick Stuart, who was the 5th of Ballechin, took charge of men from Athol and held Blair Athol Castle against government forces.
Very good.
So a prominent figure in the Jacobite army.
Yeah.
His son, Charles, fought with the Jacobites at Killiecrankie that same year.
Wow.
And he had to surrender to the government to receive a pardon for what he had done. Otherwise, he would have lost everything or may have been executed.
Fair play.
Charles Stuart VII of Ballechin and his son Robert both served in the Jacobite army during the Rising of 1745. They were both present at Culloden, from what I can see, and Charles was a captain in the Athol Brigade.
Okay, so pretty prestigious all the way through.
Army men.
Yep.
Lots of army men.
As usual. I always have the respect of anyone who went to Culloden.
Yeah, I think just because it was such a shit show.
Yeah. And it just fits them nicely into the generally spooky universe.
Yep, we know exactly who they are, where they were, what they were doing, what they were about.
So who are you and who were your people?
Who are your people? I was saying to Kieran while I was researching this that I was super proud that I found out as much about the family as I did, because it was a slightly obscure document that I managed to find and was able to verify stuff I'd read in other places. I felt absolutely baller. It was great.
Giving it to him.
Lieutenant Colonel Hope Stuart was the 10th of Ballechin, and Ballechin House as we know it was built during his lifetime in 1806. He died in 1834, so we're kind of getting into modern times on our scale.
Yes.
On the podcast. It's not recent history generally, but
it's generally recent.
That's going to be the next podcast. We'll do commentary. We'll talk about current affairs.
Oh, I can't keep up with that.
It'll be great. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I'm worried.
It's always current, so you just have to roll with it.
So did he get the house built? Or was he just alive while it was built?
I think he was the one that had it built.
Safe to assume.
Because it was built the same year that his son was born.
Okay, yes.
So he would have been of an age where he could have had it built.
Yep.
He wasn't a young man.
And presumably his son didn't build it.
No. That would have been quite the achievement.
Yes.
When Hope Stuart died, like I said, in 1834, the house and the title passed to his son, Major Robert Stuart, 11th of Ballechin.
Okay.
Now, he was either born in 1804 or 1806.
Okay.
I thought it was quite spooky that he was about as old as the house itself.
Yeah. Will that come up later?
Maybe.
Oh. That's like a shadow just went past.
Oh my god.
4 of them.
What are the odds? When he inherited, Robert was serving in India. So he didn't move into the family home straight away because he wasn't even in the country. He didn't come home until 1850.
Okay.
So 16 years after his father's death.
Wow.
And it seems that he was renting the house out while he was away. So other people were living there. I double checked, and because he came home in 1850, Robert was actually serving under the East India Company while he was out in India.
Oh, okay.
Rather than... It was still technically under the British Crown, but he served in the army of the East India Company.
Oh. Okay. It's not something I know much about.
Well, it's tricky to think of now, but the East India Company was so big, it's kind of hard to imagine.
Yeah.
In the 1700s, the East India Company accounted for half the world's trade.
Damn.
I know that not as much trade was happening then, assumingly because it's the 1700s, but they were half of it.
Damn.
They were in control of huge areas of India with like permission of the British government. So they had their own armed forces to maintain control.
Oh, I see. And that's who Bob Stewart was working for.
Yes, yeah, he was serving them because he was in the army and he'd been posted to India.
Ah.
And the East India Company took their orders from the British government.
So they almost got a loan of the army, really.
Kind of, yeah. It wasn't until scroll too far. It wasn't until 1858 that the East India Company was dissolved completely.
Okay.
And that was when the British Raj took control of India.
Oh.
The Indian Rebellion of 1857 happened the year before, and that had forced the British government to act because huge numbers of Indian people rebelled against their treatment by the company, and it ended up being incredibly bloody.
Yeah.
So steps had to be taken to try and improve conditions, and I think, I haven't taken too many notes on this because it's not technically relevant, but I think one of the outcomes of the rebellion was that Queen Victoria came out and basically granted people in India the same rights as British citizens.
Oh.
So moving forward, whenever they were treated poorly, they could refer back to her speech and say, well, the Queen said, so you have to treat us better.
I'm with you.
Obviously, that is a whistle-stop tour of the Indian Rebellion. It's much bigger than that, but that was the culture that he was operating in.
Got you. My only known reference to it, other than I think it's come up on the podcast before, is at the very start of Pirates of the Caribbean. When Jack Black is captured, the guy whips open his sleeve and goes, oh, like, had a run-in with the East India Company, have we, pirate? And I've never known what that meant. I'm like, those are just two sentences you've put together. It's been like, oh, had a run-in at Tesco, have you, doctor?
Well, in the
What?
later movies, it comes out why he fell foul of the East India Trading Company.
Oh, I don't remember this.
I won't spoil it.
Unsurprisingly.
But yeah, that they were real and they had an insane amount of power.
Anyway, yes.
And they treated people really, really badly.
What? Even though they had lots of money and power? That is shocking. That must be
know.
the only time that has ever happened.
Yeah. People probably saw that and went, we should never do that again.
Yeah, right. So we're back at the house.
Yes, Robert came home. He didn't serve under the British Raj. He served under the East India Company. But upon his return, stories began to swirl about the returned major in the local area.
Uh-huh.
Some people claimed that he'd had an affair with one of his housekeepers, who then died in 1873.
Oh, well, that's more of a shame.
She was a farmer's daughter called Sarah, apparently, who fell mysteriously ill and died.
Oh, no.
I think there's a good chance that the reason this rumour made it round the mill is because I don't think he ever married.
Ah.
For a man of his standing and wealth, it would have been strange that he never married.
Yes.
So people would have started just making shit up.
Well, I was going to say, like, what... Well, one, what's it to them? But, you know, gossipers gonna gossip. I'm included in that. But how would have got back that he'd come home but had an affair back in India? I'm like, so?
No, this was his housekeeper in Ballechin House.
Oh, well, that makes more sense. I think you meant that they had a rumour that when he was in India, he had an affair with one of his housekeepers.
Nope. That was probably expected.
Well, that's kind of what I thought. I'm like, well...
I mean, our Black
Yes.
Lady episode.
Exactly. So a local housekeeper.
Yes, I did say people were gossiping in the local area.
Yeah, I thought it was in the local area about his old house.
No. So a housekeeper from round here worked for him, apparently had an affair with him and died.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now Kieran's going to die.
It's the shock factor.
Now, one of the other things people found strange about Robert
Yes.
were the rumours circulating as to why he kept so many dogs on his estate.
Because he was like you and just liked dogs.
I mean, I see nothing wrong with having lots of dogs.
Yeah.
One source claimed that he had 14 dogs.
That's a lot of dogs.
But if you have a large estate to manage, you would have several working dogs.
I guess you would.
And then if he likes hunting, he might have hunting dogs.
Yep.
And companion dogs.
And if he likes dogs, he just gets as many dogs as you
You
kid.
know, I don't think it's that out there, but
Yep.
people wondered. Because apparently, during his time in India, Robert had learned a great deal about reincarnation.
Oh.
And reincarnation is dying and having your spirit, your soul, return in a different form or a different body.
Yes.
So in this view of life after death, your soul is immortal. You stay who you are, and it exists long after your mortal body fails. You've probably heard of it before.
It's come up.
Apparently, Robert believed that when he eventually died, he would be reincarnated and would return as a dog.
Huh.
He felt very connected to dogs.
Fair enough.
So he kept lots of dogs around, seemingly in the hope that he would return as one of them should he die.
Yeah.
Although my understanding of reincarnation is that you come back as a baby.
Well, that's what I've always thought. If the dog had puppies at the same time that he died, then maybe.
Or like sometime after.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if he was keeping them in hopes that that would happen, or I'm not sure.
Maybe just trying to get a good reputation.
Trying to make himself interesting.
Just to dogs. So if he comes back as a dog, dogs will be nice to him. Like, yeah, we know this guy.
I thought you meant like just to people like, ooh, I'm gonna say this. People are gonna think I'm weird.
Ooh, people are gonna think I'm so edgy, so mysterious.
I'm just a weirdo, okay?
I'm not like other guys.
I'm just a weirdo.
So, Bob Stewart, the emo, was pondering around his house.
You can call him Bob.
That's his name, isn't it?
To his friends, maybe. It's Major to you.
Oh, ooh. Maybe Major. Was he Major Corporal?
Just Major.
Oh.
I read that he shared his beliefs about reincarnation with his neighbours and people in the local area, kind of warning them, I guess, that he would come back as one of his dogs. I'm wondering in like hopes that they might look after the dogs or look after him. But he was telling them ahead of time that this is what was going to happen.
Fair enough.
And then Robert died in 1876.
Okay.
At about 70 years old.
Yeah, 70 or 72.
Yeah, thereabouts. He had never married and never had children that we know of. Mm-hmm. So his nephew, John Skinner Stewart, inherited Ballechin House.
Nephew, okay.
The son of Robert's sister,
Yes.
Mary.
My sister's son.
Mm-hmm. John moved into Ballechin House with his wife Caroline, keen to take on the family home.
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes that when they moved in, one of the first orders of business was shooting all of the dogs.
Oh, no. Shooting them. That's just terrible.
If this is true, then these might be the most evil people we've ever talked about on the podcast.
I think they might be.
If it's true.
Who can murder 14 dogs?
Because it might not be true.
I guess it might not be true.
We're going to get there.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Isn't that awful?
That is awful.
The story goes that when John and his wife heard about Uncle Robert's beliefs, when they heard what he had told the neighbours, they didn't like the sound of him returning as one of the dogs at all. So they had them all shot to stop it from happening.
Bit extreme, but I do understand the apprehension. Like, I can't say I'd want one of my uncles living as a dog in my house. Or in his own house if I inherited it.
I mean, it's still a dog.
You'd still rub his belly.
I'd be fine.
You'd be fine?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be fine. But I'm not going to murder the dogs as
No.
the answer.
Can you see where this might be going?
Ghost.
I mean, it's a good guess. It's a bit catch-all, but it's a good guess. We've gotten to the good stuff quite quickly this episode.
We're well, I don't know what the published is, but we're half an hour in.
Are you impressed?
I am impressed. We're half an hour in and into the ghosts.
Mm-hmm. Basically, John and Caroline have set themselves up good and proper for a right old haunting.
Yep.
You can see it from a mile away. They've done all of the wrong things.
Or all of the right things.
Oh, if they wanted to be haunted.
Yeah.
Wanted to be haunted.
Wanted and Haunted. That's our next show.
Ghost criminals. Ghost cops. We can be ghost cops.
Gonna add that to my LinkedIn. Kieran, ghost cop.
It wasn't long before John and Caroline started experiencing strange things around the house. Although apparently the first person to notice something wasn't quite right was one of their maids the same year that John and Caroline moved in.
I mean, she probably noticed there was 14 dogs missing and went, what's up with that?
Would you like to hear some of the things that the maid heard?
Yes.
Voices that sounded like gunshots, voices that knocked, and voices that hissed and argued, even if the words weren't clear enough to hear.
Could she be hearing gunshots and knocks and just wind?
Well, maybe.
That voice sounds like a gunshot. Oh, I just heard a gunshot.
Well, see, when I read a voice like a gunshot, it reminded me of that thing you do where you hold in a cough until the last minute and then you let it out in one big bark.
I do that.
You hold it in and then it's just one really loud big one. That's what I thought of when I heard voice like a gunshot.
Yes, 50% of the time it's so I can let Ailey finish her sentence while we're recording. The other 50% is just to be annoying.
Yeah, the other 50% is directly in my ear when we're in bed, about to go to sleep.
Not directly in your ear, beside your ear. I don't aim it at you.
You don't have to. It's got such a range. And it's so like piercing and jarring.
Yeah.
That's what I thought of.
Mm-hmm. A voice like a gunshot.
Yeah, so what do you think about that?
Well, it's unusual. I'm struggling to imagine what that sounds like, because to me, it's if it's really quiet and then somebody like barks something really loud and sharply. I don't know, like if there was a kid about to stick a fork in a toaster and you had to like shout "oi" really loudly and suddenly to stop them doing it. That's kind of what I imagine for that sound.
It's kind of what Dad does sometimes if he like gives you a fright.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you heard him do that?
Yeah.
My dad is the worst for like practical jokes and just giving you a fright. Like, it gives me so much rage just thinking about it, because he used to do it to me all the time. But he has a really booming voice, so if he does something really suddenly and like shouts at you, it is quite booming. I say shouts at you, not in anger at all, but just making that noise. That would have the similar effect.
Yeah, well, he got me because he did it at Odin when we were around at their house and I wasn't paying attention and I went like, "Gah!"
And sometimes it's not even loud, but because his voice is so booming, it like carries.
Yeah.
So he's not going for volume. It's just like depth, and it gets me every time.
So that's what I imagine as a voice like a gunshot, whatever it was.
There was several. There was like a gunshot, voices that knocked, and voices that hissed and argued.
I don't know what voices that knocked are. The hissing are... There was a grandfather clock just ran past.
Hey, you asked. Except you didn't, but I did it anyway.
Yeah, no, but you have to like talk while you do it.
You were about to do it there.
I'm going to let you try and do it.
No. I will ruin all my credibility if I do that now. You get there's languages in Africa.
Oh yeah, they're like clicking.
I can't remember the names of them though. Do you know what I mean? There's clicking as part of their like vocabulary. That's how they communicate.
Yeah, can't imagine that. And hisses are just wind to me.
Yeah.
Be very spooky to hear. Susurrations.
That's a good word. So there's all of that. But other people who came to stay at the house experienced the sensation of being seized by a ghost animal, most likely a dog.
That would be terrifying. They've definitely put the dog in like after the fact to fit the narrative, but
that sensation, even if it's not a dog?
Yeah.
What the hell?
What would that even feel like? Oh my god, Ailey's going to jump on me. Ailey, no!
What if just someone just really, really enjoyed pantsing people? But we're really good at hiding after the fact.
I don't think that's what that would feel like.
I got grabbed! My pants are at my ankles.
I don't think those would be confused.
Maybe. You don't know.
Oh man, that dog just attacked me. It was like having my trousers pulled down.
If it's a small dog.
I don't think that's a simile people have used before.
That might be all they can do.
Terrifying.
Yeah, so lots of strange reports coming out of Ballechin House following the death of Major Robert. I'm not sure how long John and Caroline actually lived at the house for. Because I think John... Hold on.
Was it the smell of dead dog?
No. Because John died in 1895.
Okay.
But in 1892, the house was used for a kind of religious retreat.
Oh.
So that implies to me that they weren't living there if they were allowing retreats to happen.
Yeah.
So I think they were only there a few years.
I suppose it might be the case that we have with a lot of the castles we talk about, where it's the family home, but they also have like a flat in Paris and a house down near London and all that kind of stuff.
I think John's wife came from a titled family.
Yeah.
It was all a bit murky. I couldn't really confirm anything, so I haven't included it. I feel like that was the case. But then if they moved there in 1876 and they were gone by 92, that's still like 15 years.
Yeah, that's true.
They just didn't stay there forever.
And I'm thinking that when a rich title person lives somewhere, doesn't mean they spend 12 months a year there.
That's true. That's true.
There's lots of travelling, and back then when you'd visit friends for like weeks at a time and stuff.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Maybe they spent summers there.
Yeah, well, because if you'd not be in Scotland in the deep of winter...
Well, you would, wouldn't you?
You'd go somewhere a bit nicer.
You'd go down to Bath.
Yeah. Somewhere with more than 7 hours of daylight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know if they were still living there. They still owned it, but in 1892, a man called Father Hayden stayed at the house with a group of nuns on a religious retreat.
Oh.
I think he was local. He served the local parish. And I don't know what a religious retreat really entails, to be honest.
No. I have just rude things in my head.
Say it.
Yeah.
But the father and the nuns reported mysterious bumps in the night, as well as angry voices and slamming doors.
I have heard that things go bump in the night.
They would know.
They would know.
Quite creepy.
I mean, it's getting a bit of a reputation here.
Mm-hmm. And it would make a really striking horror movie, having this priest and these nuns in a haunted house.
Yes.
Like servants of God. Someone should get on that.
I've been recommended the new Russell Crowe exorcism movie.
Pope's Exorcist, I think.
The review for my brother, it's hilarious. You should watch it. Like, I don't think that's what they were going for.
You psychopath. Like I said, John Skinner Stewart died in 1895.
Yes.
And then Ballechin House was rented out to a different family.
Huh.
So Caroline wasn't living there. They had children who could inherit, but their eldest son, John, had married a woman out in Iowa. So I'm assuming he was living out there.
Yeah.
So he didn't take on the house to live there.
I don't know if Iowa's particularly exotic, but do you want to move back north of Perth? No, I do not.
He married a woman called Anastasia.
Ooh.
In Iowa.
In Iowa. Spicy.
It's not a combination that I would have expected.
No, even Iowa I didn't expect in the late 1800s. But why not? Why not Iowa? That's what I always say.
Now, I read quite a lot of different things. Again, I couldn't confirm anything, but the identity of this family has been largely kept anonymous. In a lot of the documents that I read, they were referred to as the H family. I saw one source saying they were from Spain, but then that might be a different family.
Is this the family who are renting it?
Yes.
Yep.
So they leased Ballechin House for a year, paying upfront largely for that year. But they were so disturbed by the things happening there that they left the house early.
Oh, man.
Even though they paid.
Crazy.
All kinds of things. Lots of strange noises, lots of banging, thumps, apparitions. So they were seeing people wandering around the house who shouldn't be there. Very creepy.
Tell you what, a ghost could have me by the ankle, throwing me around the room, and I'd be like, well, I've paid for the year, so I'm staying for the year.
I'm going to be haunting you, mate.
It's me, we're just going to have to get along. I've paid for it, I'm going to enjoy it.
The ghost of my bank balance is going to haunt you forever. I'm staying. That's very true. There are people in our lives, if they listen, they're going to hear that and they're going to cackle laugh because it's 100% true. Would you like to have a crack at guessing how long this family lasted before they gave up? So they paid for the year and leaving forfeited what they had paid.
Yep.
How long did they last?
Well, I'm going to assume they're not as tight as I am, so I'm going to go 3 months, because I'm assuming it's not that long that they stayed there. Because if it was 11 months and 2 weeks, you probably wouldn't bring it up. So I'm going 3 months.
7 weeks.
Damn.
Not even 2 months.
Not even 2 months.
Things were... Will you stop? You've been throwing that pen around since we sat down.
Well, that was a ghost you heard.
It's not a ghost. I watched you do it. If you can't behave, then you can't have it.
I need my notes for the blether.
Just put it down.
No.
Stop throwing it around there. Yeah, 7 weeks. So they paid for 12 months and left before the end of 2 because things were that intolerable.
Damn. Did they get divorced just after? Because was that just like the cover-up? Oh,
well,
no.
I don't know. I don't know who they were, really. I know they had children. I know it was like a family, but I don't really know much about them, other than later reports of what they experienced at the house.
Got you.
Which were along the lines of what I was saying.
I think it adds some credibility to their claims that they remained anonymous.
Do you think?
So
they weren't clout chasing?
Yeah, they weren't clout chasing, and if they could afford to pay up front for a manor house for a year, they were obviously fairly well to do. So they probably didn't want to, like, ruin their own reputation, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
So that puts some weight in it for me.
Fair.
Warms my ghostometer.
How are you feeling about Ballechin House at the minute?
I mean, it's pretty spooky. I don't have anything to dispute, well, apart from the susurrations of voices, but pretty spooky, pretty spooky.
Okay. Where are you on your spookometer?
I'm at
give us a reading?
3 out of
3
out of 50, out of 10.
Even after everything I've told you?
Yeah. A 3's pretty good.
How very dare you?
Where are you?
A 10. All the time. That's why I'm so anxious. So like I said at the start, Ballechin House kind of has all the ingredients for your classic haunted house.
Yes, it sounds very much like the house in Jane Eyre.
Or like, you know, the haunted mansion. Like there's the troubled soul, the troubled owner who can't find rest. His dogs have been supposedly murdered.
Yeah, that's a shame.
The house has a beautiful exterior and it's filled with expensive pieces of furniture and art because he took back a lot from India.
Yeah.
So it's this beautiful place, but has this undercurrent that seems to be tormenting whoever goes in.
Yeah. This reputation to it.
Even the idea of reincarnation kind of lends a spooky air to the place.
Yep.
Even though reincarnation isn't spooky.
It's not a spooky phenomena.
I think it's quite soothing, really.
Yeah.
One of the theories for the strange things people were experiencing was the fact that Robert's spirit had nowhere to go because he was so set on being reincarnated as a dog.
Yes.
The dogs were shot, so he was left to wander around the house and the grounds for eternity.
Trapped forever.
Mm-hmm.
What if you holidayed there with a dog and you came home and your dog was acting all weird?
Or would your dog just have a best friend forever?
Oh, invisible playmate.
Right?
That'd be pretty cool. That'd be much better than just your dog becoming racist against people from India.
Yeah. I would prefer one over the other.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest. But I mean, if we took Odin to somewhere like that, A ghost couldn't help but fall in love with him. Because all he wants is cuddles and attention.
Who doesn't fall in love with him?
He's a sooky wee boy. He just wants attention all of the time.
He wants everyone to be his best friend.
Yeah. If you're interested in Odin content, I posted a photo of him falling asleep on my bookshelf with all my podcast books yesterday. So you should totally check it out because it's super cute.
Where should people check it out?
At Generally Spooky, Kieran, on Instagram.
There we go.
I said Instagram.
I don't think so.
Instagram. So, Ballechin House has cultivated quite the reputation by the late 1800s.
Yes, as a spooky place.
Yes, there's been sort of 20 years or so of murmurings and wonderings and rumours. It had cultivated such a reputation that the Society for Psychical Research got involved.
Oh, here we go. I was promised some rage. So say that again. This.
Well, let me say it.
Well, I hadn't finished asking.
The Society for Psychical Research.
Psychical Research.
Yes.
Okay.
Considering how often we talk about like spooky goings on, I'm surprised they haven't come up more.
I know, eh?
Really. Yes, this story is going to take a bit of a turn, and you may have to rethink everything I've told you up until this point.
Oh no. There's going to be some bullshit up here, isn't there? Oh, is that what's that ghostly smell? It smells like shit.
If we look at the Society for Psychical Research through a modern lens, so I feel like the way a modern day person looks at ghost hunting is very different to how they viewed ghost hunting, which is largely what the society did.
Well, when I think of a Victorian society, I think of the Royal Society.
Yes, so you are in the right vein.
Yeah.
This was still a society modelled after that.
So I imagine English gentlemen giving talks and having lecturers in and eating big dinners.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. So to understand the society, we kind of have to look at it in the context it was created in. Because if we think about ghost hunters now, it's very different from what they thought and how they felt. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'm going to refer to them as the SPR largely, so I don't have to say it over and over.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if I say SPR, I'm talking about the Society for Psychical Research.
Okay. Well, because when you think of a modern day ghost hunting group, almost said league, but that gives them too much credit.
Maybe we'll form a league. Maybe we're in a league.
Am I a ghost hunter? Oh. You know, you picture like the EMF readers, like the spirit box.
Exactly.
Tools, like heat detectors, looking for cold spots, all that kind of, I don't know. Fancery, what's the word? Just all that kind of pomp and performance around it. Mm-hmm. So what did they have in the 1890s?
Well, the essence was kind of similar because they were really focused on the science. And I know that you're going to roll your eyes at me, but to them, I'm not saying I agree that it's fully scientific, but to them, that's what they were trying to do, the way they understood it.
Well, they could have been.
If that makes sense.
You can do science as long as they accept the result.
Well, that's the tricky thing, isn't it?
Yeah. In a sense, I am all for science to detect ghosts. My just hypothesis is that you won't detect them.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because that was largely what they were trying to do.
Yep.
It was just tricky in practice.
Yes.
So the SPR was formed in 1882.
Okay.
So before John Skinner died, before the father and the nuns went to Ballechin. Victorian era, industry and technology have been and are improving at an incredible rate. The world is a completely different place than it was at the start of the same century.
Yes.
We have railways. Technology dependent upon electricity is happening. Factory life is in full swing. People's lives were being utterly rocked.
Yeah.
And it's probably a bit of a tired comparison, to be honest, but the creation of the internet might be one of our closest shared experiences of this.
Yes.
The kind of seismic shift in how life operates.
The before and after is so drastically different.
Yeah, so this was a period of flux for them in a similar way.
I'm with you.
Answers were being found to some of life's biggest questions during this period. So it made people question their beliefs in a big way. And people were finding themselves wanting answers and feeling suddenly like things were within reach that weren't before.
Yep.
Things like what happens after death, or are there senses that we aren't aware of? How does the human brain work? Things of that nature.
Yep.
Was there a way to prove that ghosts and paranormal phenomena were real? Enter the Society for Psychical Research.
I'm not against it. You know, based on the information you've told me so far, great, good, off to a good start.
Yeah, you can see it.
They are good questions to ask, and a society filled with smart people is a good place to try and get them answered.
Right?
Let's go.
So, from what I could see, the way that they wanted to approach, I say ghost hunting, but there was a lot of different phenomena that came under their umbrella. So it wasn't just documenting ghosts. We'll get into it in a bit, but there's things like telepathy or automatic writing, spirit photography, hypnotism, lots of different things.
Yep.
Thought transference was another one. But they were trying to approach all of this with scientific experiments, using the scientific method as they understood it. So running tests, recording results, questioning witnesses, running control tests where they could. The earliest form of ghost debunking that you can find.
Very nice.
That's what they were doing. It started out initially just as a discussion between a man called Edmund Rogers and William F. Barrett. Rogers was a journalist who was interested in the paranormal, and Barrett was a physicist.
Oh, my kind of guy.
Barrett was quite a big deal. He was Professor of Experimental Physics at the Royal College of Science for Ireland in the late 1800s.
That is a big deal.
He discovered a silicon iron alloy and studied what causes cataracts.
Oh.
And this is a recurring theme you'll find with members of the society, that they're largely men, as you would expect. But they're not like loopy.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing and they're smart. And it's not people you would expect.
It's people who today would be laughed at for joining a paranormal investigation group.
Kind of, yeah. And it's a funny change.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to show that what the society was doing, the people who were involved deemed it science.
Yep.
And worth pursuing. And these were people who had skin in the game to lose.
So it is much more like the Royal Society of Science. Is that what it was? Or just called the Royal Society?
There is just the Royal Society.
Yeah. That Darwin was the head of for a while and stuff. Newton.
Coupled with the obvious progression in science and industry, the 1800s were kind of the Wild West for witnessing the paranormal in action. It felt like you could see it everywhere, and loads of people were suddenly interested in spiritualism for the first time, which we've talked about before.
Yes, and we read a lot about it in a book called The Confidence Men, I think.
The Confidence Men, yes, brilliant book.
By Marguerite Fox.
Yes, well done.
Boom.
Put the pen down.
Ow.
Yeah, The Confidence Men, and The Haunting of Alma Fielding is another one if you're interested. By Kate Summerscale. It's another good one. But yeah, it was just the Wild West. So many people were claiming that they could perform hypnotisms, and you could go to seances left, right and centre. Poltergeists were everywhere.
There was quite a mania.
Yeah, people could read minds. You could go and have your mind read or have thoughts put into your head by someone. There are people claiming they could do all of this.
Yep. I can read my wife's mind right now. She's saying, stop playing with that pen.
Yep. Now, Barrett was a physicist, blah, blah, blah. But he was also convinced that divining rods were real.
See, I was wondering if I thought they were called dowsing rods.
They are. Divining rods, dowsing rods. They're the L-shaped rods that you hold in your hands, and you ask questions, and certain responses imply answers from a being on another plane.
Yep. It's if they cross.
Well, it depends. It depends. You could say, cross them to say this, or have them point this way to say this answer. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
He was fully invested in dowsing rods being a real thing.
Now, if he made an alloy, he will know how metal works to know that it's just two different types of metal that respond differently to heat.
Well, yes. But he was a complete believer, and he was a physicist.
Yeah. And just whoever's holding them could just cross them. You know?
Yeah, kind of. I will say right here that every time I present someone to you who is a full believer in whatever area of the paranormal they believe in, there are several people behind them criticizing their work and beliefs. So every claim that was ever made, every belief that was ever made was always hotly contested by skeptics.
Yep.
And people who didn't believe it. So in the case of William Barrett, one of his criticisms was, he talks nonsense of which he ought to be ashamed. Someone wrote that about him.
Nice.
So bear that in mind.
Yep. It's definitely more of a stigma then amongst the academics. I would have thought it'd been less of a stigma compared to now, but apparently not.
It kind of depends. The stigma about it is a funny thing, because if their beliefs are approached and then backed up in the right way, there's less criticism. Sometimes it's about the way that they come to their conclusions rather than the conclusion itself.
Well, that's good science.
Which we're going to get into. We're going to talk about it a bit more.
Yep.
But it's a tricky one. It wasn't a flat, this is ridiculous. It kind of depended.
Yep.
Roger and Barrett's conversation, and there were other people involved as well, was the precursor to a conference that was held in January 1882 at the headquarters of the British National Association of Spiritualists.
British National Association of Spiritualists. Okay.
And this was where the Society for Psychical Research really came together.
That's where they really got into their own.
Well, yeah, because not all members of the SPR were spiritualists.
Got you.
Spiritualist was its own belief system in life after death and other things. The Society was trying to gather evidence about what they could prove.
Yeah, it's a not all fingers are thumbs.
Yeah,
but all thumbs are spiritualists.
Yeah.
Situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, got you.
You've heard that one before.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There were also several different formal groups of paranormal investigators or people interested in the supernatural at this time. The Ghost Club was formed in 1862.
We need a name. Ghost Club.
It still exists today.
There's still the Ghost Club.
They're still investigating.
I wonder if they've found anything yet.
I mean, I don't want this to sound mean, but I'm sure they think they have.
Yeah, well, that's true.
They've been around a long time. But I don't mean that to be mean. I'm being genuine. That I'm sure there's things they look at that are 100% the truth.
Yeah.
The SPR officially started in February 1882 with a man called Henry Sidgwick as its president.
Okay.
He was a professor of moral philosophy at Cambridge. And it's kind of cool. He co-founded Newnham College with Millicent Garrett Fawcett, who was a prominent suffragist. So she fought for women to get the vote. The college was a women-only constituent college and the second Cambridge college to admit women.
Very cool.
So he co-founded that.
I like that. If we hit him with a ghost club, will he get hurt?
Depends if you believe it, I guess.
Oh, that'd be interesting. So you'd be hit with it, but I wouldn't.
Yeah. That's where my mind went. The SPR's purpose was to, quote, approach these varied problems without prejudice or prepossession of any kind, and in the same spirit of exact and unimpassioned inquiry which has enabled science to solve so many problems, once not less obscure nor less hotly debated, unquote.
Love it.
Right, I thought you would like that. That they're coming at it without any bias.
Yeah.
The problem was...
They did have bias.
the people who joined the society kind of already felt that the paranormal existed.
Got you.
So I don't think they were as unbiased as they might have liked to believe they were.
Yeah.
And like that's the problem, isn't it? Because only people with an interest in the subject will join.
Well, I mean, I think it's such a good idea because I'm biased that ghosts don't exist. So I'm like, yeah, you'll be able to prove it sensibly to prove I'm right. That's what the people who think the opposite are going to do as well.
Well, but when you have people who believe the opposite to what you just said, like the people the
Yep.
opposite of you, also part of the same society, and they're presenting things to you that you know that they haven't been unbiased about, you're going to get upset.
Mm-hmm.
So the people like you generally left.
Yes. Well, yeah, because what do I have to gain, you know?
You can see that it's not being done in an unbiased way.
Yep.
So you're not going to hang about because that's not what's being done.
Yeah,
That's why it's tricky. It's not straightforward.
that is tricky.
Now, what's interesting is I read that the SPR devised methodological innovations such as randomized study designs, which is big in scientific experiments.
That is cool. That is really smart.
And they carried out the first experiments investigating the psychology of eyewitness testimony,
Oh,
which is major.
yeah.
I think that's extremely interesting because that's something that gets used regularly in police investigation and interrogation today.
I wondered.
Because there's a lot of research and detail behind getting and using eyewitness testimony.
Well, I've come across it in books before where there's good evidence that eyewitness testimony is almost totally useless.
Yeah. There's been a lot of work into it.
Especially if it's not got at the time. Like,
Well, and there's a lot of study and research been done into the way you ask questions if you're trying to get testimony from someone.
yeah.
You have to be very careful about the way you word things, how suggestive you are. It's its own field. So they were doing this. They
Yeah,
were
very
investigating how they could ensure eyewitness testimony of ghosts could be completely genuine.
I like to think that when they were like drafting this out as I don't know, they put it out as like a pamphlet or maybe a paper or something. So, well, we've started with, don't believe him, he's a nutter. But we need a scientific, like, how do we...
We have to say this not like an arsehole.
Yeah,
How
'cause-
do we do that?
You know, he's seen a ghost, but I've talked to him and clearly he has not. You know, because he's stinking of booze. So they've just like, they've redrafted it into what you said about eyewitness testimony.
It's interesting though, isn't it?
Very interesting.
They were doing that and that has genuine value.
Absolutely.
But the reason they got there was not how you would expect.
No.
Now, while the SPR's purpose was to seek out the truth and try and suss out the paranormal, a lot of what they did and ended up doing was rule out hoaxes.
I mean, that's a full-time job.
Still valid. Still a big part of the job of finding out what's genuine. They were discounting rather than confirming.
Looking at you, Helen Duncan.
Yeah. What I find kind of funny is the fact that the SPR focused a fair bit on hoaxes and exposing them. But this eventually caused a lot of their members to leave,
Oh, really?
including Arthur Conan Doyle in 1930. He led a mass resignation from the SPR
Oh, man.
because they felt that the SPR was attacking spiritualism because they were exposing all of these hoaxes.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to be a part of it, so they left and started a different association, I think.
A different ghost club.
The London Spirit Association, but I don't know if I have that right.
Because he was a big spiritualist in that sense, wasn't he?
Yes, big time. I think he lost his son,
Oh, yeah.
which was a common theme for a lot of the ones who joined. They had lost someone and were trying to ensure that their deaths had meaning
That's a shame.
or wanted to speak to them again. So he felt they were attacking spiritualism,
Yeah.
and really they were just exposing frauds. But the people who wanted to believe in these frauds didn't accept it, so they left.
Well, that's the problem with the bias, isn't it? That when you present clear evidence to somebody who doesn't want to see it, they won't see it,
And that's what happened.
no matter how clear it is.
There's like 84 of them who left all at once.
Damn.
It was kind of tricky for the SPR because their modus operandi of exposing hoaxes was kind of a double-edged sword for them, because they were just trying to do what they set out to do. They were trying to discover the truth. But it pissed off the spiritualists, so they left. But because they spent so much of their time exposing frauds, people were angry if the SBR had initially believed those fraudsters. They would look at that as discrediting the whole society. Well, you believed them for a time. You said it was this, and now you've said it's not.
That's tricky.
But then outsiders would scoff at the SPR altogether, wondering how they could ever have been taken in, how any of their research could be taken seriously, how it was a pseudo field of science. And as a result, the wider scientific community never really accepted their journals and scientific papers, just due to the subject matter and the wide range of hoaxes out there, which the SPR was exposing.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
It is very tricky.
They're kind of caught in the middle.
I'm surprised they were ever writing like scientific journals, but they were largely scientists who were there, so it does make sense.
They're still releasing peer-reviewed journals.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Peer-reviewed.
Peer-reviewed. But I'm doing it as well. I'm like, yeah, but who are the peers who are reviewing them?
See, you're falling into the same thing.
Yeah.
Would you like to hear about some of the members of the SPR?
Tell me about your member, Eilidh.
Okay. Edmund Gurney was a prominent member. He was a psychologist who studied whether humans were capable of psychic abilities. And he was kind of similar to Doyle in what we just said, because he became interested after the death of his 3 sisters, who all drowned on the Nile in Egypt.
Oh my God.
They were on a barge and it capsized.
Oh, horrible.
So he was trying to look into this because he wanted their deaths to mean something.
Yep. Oh.
On the Nile.
No wonder he was so gurney.
What? Inappropriate. Hensley Wedgwood was an etymologist, so he studied linguistics, not bugs.
Oh, I thought bugs.
And he was a barrister.
Okay.
And he was also Charles Darwin's cousin.
Very cool.
He had a very strong belief in spirit photography.
What's that? You mentioned that earlier.
It was this whole thing in Victorian society where there were several photographers who came out and said that they were able to take photos of ghosts. So people would go to them and want just their photo taken with a ghost or someone specific. They would go to them and they would have a booming business.
This was in the Helen Duncan episode, I think, because somebody was like briefly in the photo and then they'd run out again. And then it would kind of look like...
Possibly. There was lots of different methods because the photos were printed using plates.
Oh,
so
yep.
There was quite a lot of things that could be done. I won't get into the minutiae. But Hensley Wedgwood was a huge believer in spirit photography. And he attended lots of seances.
Just thinking how I could see it would be much easier to believe these things when you've not seen anything different. You know, we have Hollywood showing us things that are make-believe day in and day out. So it's much more easy to, like, see a picture and be like, well, someone could have faked that. Because, you know, I just watched some giant transformer pick up Shia LaBeouf, for example.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like on our Patreon exclusive series, Spook or Spoof, you would be more likely, I think, to look at an old photograph that supposedly had a ghost in it and say that was real than a modern one.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, that's a digital file. It could just be completely shopped.
Well, yeah, just a digital photo can just be so easily photoshopped. So.
Stop it.
Just drop my pen.
Stop playing with that fucking pen.
I'm fidgety.
Yeah, I feel like even today you'd be more inclined to believe an old photo.
Yes.
Because you'd be looking at it on the basis that it can't be doctored.
But how could they have done it?
But then one of the most famous, like, paranormal photos, I think, was the surgeon's photo of the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
From the 30s. And that was completely fake.
Totally fake.
But you look at it as an old photo and you go,
Maybe though. It's funny, isn't it?
Jane Barlow was one of the few female members. She was an Irish writer who wrote a lot about the lives of Irish peasantry. Not my word. and what life was like following the Great Famine in Ireland.
Potatoless.
Oh, well, yeah, and fucking brutal. Yeah, there was way more men than women in the SPR. Even today, I looked at the members, because there's one president and then like 20 main members who run it and all that good stuff.
And peer review their own journals.
Well, it was funny because I was scrolling, there's pictures of them all, and I scrolled down everybody, and it was kind of like my laptop had broken. And that I was just scrolling past the same photo over and over again of the same like older white man. But it wasn't. It was multiple men. But they all looked very similar. I don't know if there was a single person of colour in the group.
No.
And there were not very many women. And they were all white women, as far as I remember.
It's just a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. Sir William Crookes was another prominent member of the SPR. He was a chemist and a physicist who studied spectroscopy. And he pioneered something called vacuum tubes.
Oh, that's cool.
That have electrodes in them. And they do science. And they changed chemistry and physics. Crookes also discovered thallium, the element. And he invented a 100% ultraviolet blocking sunglass lens.
Oh, that's nifty.
He was a big scientist.
He was a
big fat scientist.
Good old Bill Crookes.
But he was one of the major members of the SPR, involved in lots of investigations, and he fully believed in everything.
But he wasn't a major.
No. Sir Oliver Joseph Lodge was another physicist. He held key patents for radio, and he identified electromagnetic radiation.
Cool.
But he also wrote a book about a medium he met who seemed to be able to relay messages from Lodge's son, who had died fighting in World War I. So obviously, this is later than our story today, but I guess the SPR's heyday was kind of between the late 1800s and the mid-1900s.
Mm-hmm. It just goes to show that emotion will rule the day.
Oh, 100%.
Like, no matter
100%.
how smart, and generally physicists are quite logical. So no matter how smart and logical you are, someone's obviously done just like cold reading on him and like got him to feed them the information they've told back to him, and he's totally hooked because he wants to talk to his
loss.
He wants to talk to his dead son, and you can't blame anyone for that.
I think that's why people are so passionate about fakes.
Yeah.
Because South Park did that whole thing, that it's exploitation and it's horrendous.
Yep.
To play on people's emotions and play on their loss.
Yeah.
Because, you'd give anything to have one more conversation.
Absolutely.
Especially someone who has lost their son.
Well, yeah.
Who died in Europe, I'm assuming, at war. But he wrote a whole book on the subject. He was completely hooked.
Well, I hope it brought him closure and peace. That's all you can ever hope.
Yeah, really.
Because were I to meet somebody who's telling me this, I wouldn't challenge. If they were telling me quite impassionately, in a really positive manner, I don't think I'd challenge them on it.
Well, even if you heard someone talking that convinced, you might believe them.
That as well.
You might not believe in what they're saying, but I'm looking at you and I don't think you're lying.
Yeah.
It's like when we went to Greyfriars.
I was just about to say, I believe you are telling the truth.
Yeah, but you don't believe in what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like this would be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Robert Richer won a Nobel Prize.
Hot damn.
In recognition of his work in anaphylaxis. So I think that's looking into anaphylactic shock.
Presumably.
Like allergic reactions and stuff. He won a Nobel Prize.
Good on, Bob.
And he was... No, this is Charles.
I thought you said Robert.
Charles Robert Richer.
Oh.
You're just obsessed with Bob.
I wanted to troll you a bit, but backfired. Should have gone Chazza.
He was also the one who coined the term ectoplasm. He's a Nobel Prize winner, and he came up with the term ectoplasm.
Damn. Man, it really makes you feel insignificant, doesn't it?
Well, you'll feel better, because unfortunately he was also a massive supporter of eugenics.
What's that again?
Eugenics is where you basically breed out undesirable traits.
Oh, yes.
He fully believed in that.
Yeah.
Which is yikes.
Yeah, knew it wasn't good. Couldn't remember the specifics.
bad news town. So you don't have to feel too insignificant, because at least you're not that guy.
Well, that's true. You could have coined the term ectoplasm, but that's who you'd have to be.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of legacy that is.
I don't know.
Well, see, for me, looking into him, hearing that he supported eugenics, nothing else matters to me.
Nothing else matters.
As soon as I read that, I'm just like, nope.
Yep.
You are this thing now, and I can't get past it. Because, yikes.
Yikes, indeed.
Eleanor Mildred Sidgwick was Henry Sidgwick's wife. She was also a member of the SPR. She was a physicist, although Wikipedia describes her as a physics researcher rather than a physicist,
Yeah.
which I don't understand.
Don't get that.
Because she worked in the field of physics.
Yep.
Feel like that makes you a physicist.
Surely.
She attended Newnham College, which Henry had co-founded, and went on to become the vice principal of the college.
Very cool.
And she would also become president of the SPR later into the 1900s.
It's almost like you were writing her personal ad there. She went to this college, became the vice president, and in her spare time enjoys hunting ghosts.
I mean, it's all true. And Henry died before she did, so she
Well.
might need the classified ad.
Yep.
And you can say what you want about the SPR, but Eleanor was pretty cool.
Yeah, badass.
Making waves in a field that didn't necessarily want her. That's always fun to see.
Maybe her personal ad headline could be "Lonely as a Ghost."
Are ghosts lonely?
I imagine you'd be quite lonely as a ghost. Do you hang out with other ghosts?
We need our ghost rules.
Yep.
We keep coming up with them. We need to collate them into a little rule book. One like with the little pocket books, a little pamphlet. Now, Eleanor was one of the good ones. She wrote several papers exposing hoaxes as part of the SPR, and she outed a bunch of fraudster spirit photographers.
Very good.
So she was taking names. She wasn't taking any bullshit.
Good on her.
And she was there to do what she was there to do,
Excellent.
which I love.
Here for it.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Frederick W.H. Myers was one of the founding members of the SPR.
Okay.
Yeah, he would go on to be a president of the society, but he was plagued with accusations of incompetence and fraud, mainly because he tended towards believing mediums rather than listening to criticism of them. So he was quite deeply biased.
Yes.
But he researched a lot into telepathy and the idea of the subliminal mind.
Okay.
That was his area of expertise. They all kind of had different areas they were especially interested in. Which is funny because it's kind of like, I say major science, mainstream science.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own field that they're the most interested in.
Well, it's quite funny because when you said, well, telepathy, I was like, oh, well, that's nonsense. But the subliminal mind, I'm like, oh, well, that's what Freud was really interested in. Like dreams and what they mean and what goes on.
Like the unconscious.
Yeah, the unconscious mind. That was a lot of his like pioneering work, I believe.
So
that's the subliminal mind.
And remember, this is at a time where the lines between fields of study were very much blurred. And there were things that we wouldn't consider to be science now because we understand them. It was different then. Harry Price is one of the more well-known members of the SPR. He, I think... Oh no, it was a different... Never mind. He helped to found the National Film Library, which later became the British Film Institute.
Okay.
And he was a high-level member of the Magic Circle.
The Magic Circle.
Have you heard of the Magic Circle?
No. Is it anything like the Magic Roundabout?
No.
Okay, then definitely no.
Magic Roundabout is more colourful.
Yeah.
Who was your favourite in the Magic Roundabout?
The big dog, I think.
I like the dog. What was his name? Dougal.
Dougal.
Dougal the dog. He was the best. Well, no, this isn't like the Magic Roundabout. The Magic Circle is a society for magicians.
Yep. Go on.
Oh, I thought you would have more to say to that. I thought you'd be less accepting of that just as a fact. I was ready for more give and take and I didn't get any.
I thought I'd get it all just like magicians. Houdini type magicians?
Yeah, so illusionists.
Okay.
People performing magic tricks. This is a society for them.
Okay, well, I mean, they can have a society. They can have a less lame name, but even just the Society of Magicians would be better than the Magic Circle.
It was a super formal thing.
Oh, yeah?
They had a really in-depth joining process, and it was a big deal. Like, you had to take an oath when you joined. You had to prove that you could do magic tricks and join. It's a really major deal. But we can talk about it in the blether, because I did look into it because I thought you might be interested.
I would love to hear more about the Magic Circle.
But what I will say is you might know one of the other people who joined the Magic Circle who is alive currently.
Oh?
From the UK. Would you like... He's a well-known figure.
Darren Brown?
Nope.
Or
maybe, but he's not who I'm talking about right now.
Is it a well-known magician?
No.
Okay. Is it like Tony Blair or someone super random?
But you're on the right track. You're thinking closer than you expect.
Yep. Piers Morgan.
No.
I don't know. Hit me.
King Charles III joined the Magic Circle in 1976.
Oh, I want to know what he did to apply.
I'm not clear on all of the process, but he had to perform a magic trick in public. That's one of the things you have to do. And he did a cup trick.
A cup trick?
To join this big magic club.
Oh, wow.
Stephen Fry is also a member. But I don't think that's wholly surprising.
No, I like Stephen Fry.
But if you'd like to hear us talk more about the Magic Circle, we will talk about it on Patreon, because I did look into it for your benefit, because I thought you would be happy.
I look forward to that.
Because we don't have time here.
The king doing a magic trick with cups.
He's part of the Magician Society.
Yeah, because what's the line between a magic trick with cups and conning people to be like, guess where the ball is? Put your money down now.
He did it. Because he wanted to join.
Oh, do you think he dressed as a street urchin to...
No, there's a photo of him doing the trick, which I've seen.
Amazing.
He's just in a suit.
Well, if it's all super formal and stuff, that does make sense.
But yeah, he's in the Magic Circle.
Wow.
Officially.
So I thought I went high with Tony Blair.
That's why I said you were closer than you thought. What's nice, which I will say here, is that they have a youth chapter. There's a youth magic circle where members of the Magic Circle will run workshops and things for kids, and they can join, and it all seems quite nice. It gets them involved in community,
cool.
Which I think is a good idea.
Yep.
But yeah, you can join us over on Patreon if you'd like to hear more about the Magic Circle. Harry Price was who we were talking about and why we brought it up.
Yep.
He's best known for investigating Borley Rectory down in England.
Okay.
Which is a very famous haunted location. And has some similarities to Ballechin House in the type of haunting and the investigations that happened at both.
Yep.
I won't get too into it, otherwise this will be a million years long, but that was what made him well known as a ghost hunter.
Okay.
And there's arguments for him being the first celebrity ghost hunter. But I don't believe it, because there's a woman we're going to talk about who investigated at Ballechin who did it first and was really well known.
But she didn't have a penis.
Right? It seems silly. But he was a big deal and he was a big name. Price did a lot of work as part of the SPR exposing fraudulent mediums and spirit photographers.
Always good work.
That was his jam. He and another psychical researcher called Eric Dingwall republished an anonymous work called Revelations of a Spirit Medium in 1922. And this book basically detailed all the ways that fake mediums run their con.
Oh.
They found this and they republished it to say, this is how they're doing it. It's not mediumship. If they're doing these things, they're fake.
Ooh, I wonder, like, who wrote it?
I don't know.
Because to say they found it suggests somebody sent it to them.
Well, yeah, I think it was a genuine published work. I don't
Yeah.
think they made it up, but...
Or they wrote it and then said they found
Maybe.
it. But why would they benefit? Why would they lie?
Oh, because they republished it under their names.
Oh, well, because they could have just published it under their names if they'd
Well, yeah.
written it.
Yeah, they did that, and it basically detailed how a fake medium would go about their craft.
I like it. I like it.
Spiritualists were so angry about the release of this book. They took it as such an attack on spiritualism that they bought pretty much all the copies from what I saw and destroyed them.
Damn.
So no one could read it. Even though it's detailing how a fake medium would do these things. If they genuinely believe this is real, surely you look at that and go, oh, well, they're fake. A real medium doesn't need to do all these things.
Yes.
If you're of that mindset.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying I necessarily agree, but that seems logical to me.
Emotion rules the day again.
Does it sound reasonable to you?
Absolutely.
Because we're on opposite sides of the table here, so... But that, you know, if you really believe in it, it shouldn't bother you.
Yeah. Well, because it's almost like, oh, good, well, they got rid of the fake ones.
Yeah.
That'll leave the real ones.
Yeah, yeah. That's how it is to me.
Because to say, this is how you can fake it, isn't the same as saying, they're all fake, this is how.
Yeah, it's just, this is... If people are doing this, they're conning you.
Yeah.
Be aware. Harry Price also investigated Geff the talking mongoose.
Well, I have to hear more about Geff.
Well, you'll be sad to hear that it wasn't really a talking mongoose.
Comes back from his 3-week trip. Yeah, it was just a mongoose.
Kinda, yeah. Like the people who own the mongoose had sent Harry Price like these hairs to have them analysed, and it seemed like it was dog hair. It was a very strange case altogether. And there really wasn't much to it, just it wasn't a talking mongoose.
So good. There was somewhere, I feel it was in Aberdeenshire, where they discovered a stone circle, like a standing stone circle on this guy's farm. And he reported it to the archaeologists, and they came out and said, oh wow, that's so interesting, like we have no record of this out here. And it went on and on. And they were getting ready to like excavate this entire site when he had to come clean and be like, oh, this was a joke, I put these here. I'm really sorry. I just thought it would be funny, but it's gotten a bit out of hand.
Why would you think that would be funny, though?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I bet he thought it was funny to the end, and his wife was like, you have to tell him the truth.
Because I would be more understanding of the joke of creating like a crop circle than a standing stone circle in a country where they're everywhere.
Well, because they're not particularly big standing stones, and it was a really small one, and that's why the archaeologists were so excited. It's like, oh, we've never seen one this small before.
More like a fairy circle
Yeah.
than a standing or a picture stone circle.
Yeah, because I don't know what it was. I feel he reported it to the local paper, and they came and took a picture of it and ran the story as a joke. And then people started reaching out to him, and it just kind of snowballed until he came clean. And I think that's hilarious. So I'm fully on board with him for doing it.
Again, it's like the ones who created the surgeon's photo.
Exactly.
It was years before they came clean about that.
Yeah. I feel the only reason he came clean is because they were about to start like excavating his garden.
Oh. Can you imagine he did that and then said, I won't allow you to excavate. If you want to excavate, you're going to have to buy the land from me.
Oh.
And I don't want to leave, so you're going to have to pay me a lot of money.
Double the market value.
Now, I will say, we have our own connection to Harry Price specifically.
Okay.
We've talked about him before, and I swear we are going to come back to Ballechin House, but
It's coming round.
I want to talk about Harry Price, because this is our podcast, so if I want to talk about it, I will.
You get to decide if the price is right.
I spent the past 48 hours putting this together, so if I want to tell you an interesting fact, I'm just going to do it.
By Jove, she's going to.
Just going to do it. Price founded the National Laboratory of Psychical Research in 1925.
Okay.
So again, it's after Ballechin House, but still part of the society. And at this lab, him and his team tried to debunk artefacts that were supposedly like, haunted or had things to do with paranormal. Any materials related to hauntings and mediums, they were analysing scientifically to try and see what they were made of.
Yep.
And look at them in more detail.
Show us what you're made of.
Which, again, is a good thing, I think.
Yep.
In 1931, Price became part of an infamous case involving a spiritual medium.
Okay.
He paid this medium to perform seances for him so he could scientifically examine what she was doing. And so he could examine the ectoplasm that she was apparently producing.
Oh, this is Helen Duncan, isn't it?
He concluded that the ectoplasm this mysterious medium claimed was real
It's Helen Duncan.
was actually cheesecloth or egg whites and paper.
It's Helen Duncan.
And after continually examining her,
Goddamn Helen Duncan.
in one instance even chasing her out into the street, Harry Price exposed Helen Duncan as a fraud.
Good guy. Good guy. I knew I liked him. The price is right.
Yeah, we talked about him quite a bit in the Helen Duncan episode. He's the guy who did all the tests, and I don't know if you remember, he was trying to get her to like sit still to like examine what was going on and all the ectoplasm and stuff. And she freaked out on one of the occasions at his lab and ran out into the street and started screaming and causing this big ruckus so that they couldn't test her. Same guy.
Well, because she quickly realised she was going to get busted.
Yes, and he
panicked.
And he attended lots of her seances and was watching her every move.
You have to assume that she just thought she could outsmart him because she'd outsmarted everybody else.
I mean, probably.
Oh, gosh, she's awful.
But that was this guy.
That was this guy.
And he was part of the SPR, which is why I wanted to share the story.
Very nice, very nice.
Thought you'd like that.
Oh,
Let me know if you were listening and heard Harry Price to begin with and knew who we were talking about. Because I didn't clock it straight away when I was researching. I'd forgotten his name.
I never would have. Never ever put it together.
I don't think anyone's surprised.
Nope.
So that's quite a lot of background into the Society for Psychical Research.
Yes.
The reason I brought it all up is to give you a good understanding on what it was they were trying to do.
Uh-huh.
Because they're the ones who decided to investigate Ballechin House. With all of this knowledge, these hopes and dreams, these methods.
I think all that context is important because it gives a totally different flavour to if a modern day group of ghost hunters had visited the house, like if Most Haunted went along. Like, that's not what we're dealing with here.
If I had just told you that ghost hunters carried out an investigation in the late 1800s, it might have been trickier to know exactly what they were there to do.
Yes.
And to know the reputation they had, the kind of people who were members, what they expected.
But now you can properly picture all the mustaches and pipes that were present.
Precisely. A lot of them had big beards, and there's one of the guys, Myers? No, it was Henry Sidgwick. He had a big, like, Rasputin beard.
Cool.
No, it wasn't cool, it was awful. One of the members of the SBR who we're going to be talking about found out about the reputation that Ballechin House had.
Yep. As being, quote-unquote, dead spooky.
Yeah. So it was decided that they were going to carry out an investigation. So we need to meet the dream team who decided to take on the spectres of Ballechin.
Yeah, we do.
But that's where we're going to stop.
Oh.
And we're going to pick up next week with the investigation of Ballechin House.
Who decided these two parts were a good idea?
You did.
Who did that?
You brought up before we started recording that this should probably be a two-parter, given the length of the script.
Ugh. Kieran. Hate that guy. Well,
I'll have all the answers for you next week.
I guess we better wait and see.
And all the results to all of the experiments, the spooking, the outrage, all of it.
Well, I look forward to that, I suppose.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thanking you. As always, we're going to head over to Patreon to record our blether.
We are indeed.
And we've also got a new series, as Ailey mentioned, called Spook or Spoof, where Ailey shows me ghost photos and I get rage, basically.
And we debate whether we think it's a spook or if it's a spoof.
Yep.
I mentioned Borley Rectory this episode. I'm going to try and see if there's any ghost photos or ghost evidence specific to Borley Rectory that we could have a look at.
That would be fun.
So if you're interested in that, definitely come and join us.
That's on a Wednesday on Patreon.
It's great fun.
For the Spookmaster Generals.
Yeah. It's good. You're going to love it.
Oh, we'll see you over there.
Bye.
Bye.